I like busting myths. That's like one of my favorite things on the planet to do. And so in this video, we'll be busting some self-care myths that exist out there in the world. And we're going to be busting them so that you as a therapist do not feel guilty about taking some time for self-care. On a daily basis, as we said, self-care is a daily practice. It is not an emergency response. It is not something you do after everything has fallen apart. It is something you do on a daily basis to make sure that things do not fall apart. Myth number 5 is the one that I hate the most. And yeah, listen to the end for that one. Myth number 1, self-care is optional. So there are some people out there who believe that self-care is an option. It's something that you do. If you want to, you can avoid it altogether. You can be like, whatever, man, that's not for me. But that's something that we both know that is a myth. You cannot survive this world without taking care of yourself. The way currently our world is set up is that there's going to be a bazillion and one stressors, and you're going to experience them on a daily or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, but you will not manage to go through your lifetime without struggling with things. So long as you're interacting with people, as long as you are experiencing being a human being on earth, you are going to struggle with things. And self-care is not an option. Self-care is something that you do, again, as I said, on a daily basis to take care of yourself, because if you don't, you're going to burn out, you're going to hate your job, you're going to hate your clients, and you're not going to be able to do the things that you want to do with your life. Number 2, self-care is a luxury. That is one of the most common ones. People believe that if you're not going to the spa and getting massages and getting facials and maybe doing a manicure and a pedicure, or going on a long vacation to a nice place like Maldives or whatever, you're not really experiencing self-care. Again, that is a very flawed way to think about self-care, because it makes it inaccessible to people who cannot afford those things. And that's why I keep saying self-care is not those big grand things. Yes, it's okay for you to experience those things, and if you can afford it, well and good, but that is not for everybody. And again, just because you're doing it does not mean that you're taking care of yourself. Sometimes it's just a thing you're doing for fun, and there's nothing wrong with it. You can go to Maldives, and if you're going to Maldives, please invite me. But self-care is not a luxury. Self-care is a thing that is a basic thing that you do on a daily basis. You're going to hear me repeat that phrase so many times. Self-care is you doing things that make you better. It's not always about going for the luxurious experiences. Number 3, self-care is anything that is soothing. That is a myth. Self-care is not something that is always soothing. Sometimes it is making a difficult choice when you know that it's the choice that is the best for you. For example, let's say you're going to bed at 10, but then your friends invite you to go out and hang out, and you know it's past your bedtime and you really, really want to go to bed. It might feel very bad having to tell your friends, no, I can't go, or I have to leave at 8 because I have to get home and go to bed by 10. And that is self-care. You choosing that difficult decision of leaving your friends to go and sleep. That is a difficult decision. And at the end of the day, you know you're doing it because it's going to make your life better. You're not doing it because you're mean to your friends. So if we assume that you were supposed to make the easy decision, the decision that feels comfortable, the decision that makes other people happy, that is assuming that the experience is supposed to always be making you feel good. And self-care is not any of that. It can be, but it's not always that. So it's important for us to realize that self-care sometimes will require you to make difficult decisions when you could have made easier decisions. And that is because you're trying to make yourself better. So yeah, don't fall for the trap that it has to be easy and soothing all the time. The 4th myth about self-care is that it is all or nothing, and it is something that you have either choose self-care and neglect everything else, or you take care of everything else and neglect self-care. That is a myth. Self-care and taking care of other things can coexist. I feel like this ties a lot to the myth that self-care is selfish. People assume that if you're not doing and working and performing constantly, being a person who's doing things constantly, you're being selfish for taking time off to take care of yourself. So I believe this is a huge myth, because we are assuming that self-care is this big distinct thing that you always have to do and show up for and be like, I am doing self-care. You know, there's this expectation that it is a huge thing that you have to be performing and it has to be out there. But that's not true. Self-care is small moments, as we have said constantly even in previous videos. Self-care is in the small things that you do constantly on a daily basis. And so if you're doing self-care constantly on a daily basis in the smallest ways that you can, you will realize that it is not something that you have to choose and neglect everything else. So for example, as a parent, you might feel like, if I am not taking care of my children and providing for them constantly, I can't do self-care, because self-care is taking away time and opportunity from constantly being there for my kids. But that's not true. Those two things can exist. You can carve out time for yourself to take care of yourself, and also have time to take care of your kids. Because, as we said, self-care is not one big thing that you do, like you take 24 hours to do. It's not one big thing that you have to take an entire week to do. It's something that you do for 5 minutes, something that you do for an hour. So it's not all or nothing. You can have self-care and other things in your life at the same time. Those things can coexist. Last but definitely not least, the one that I said that pisses me off the most is that self-care is a privilege, something you earn after doing a series of things. That is something that I completely disagree with, because if we continue insisting that self-care is something that you only get after you've performed a series of things, after you've met every other need for every other person, and you're the last person to get self-care, and it's a privilege that is only reserved for a select few people, then again we are locking out so many people out of self-care. We are insisting that self-care is only for the chosen few, which is a lie. As we said, self-care is a daily practice for every single person. If you're waiting for you to burn out, or you're waiting for you to do a certain number of things, then be like, now I can take some time for self-care. I have earned it. I can reward myself with self-care. Then you are doing self-care wrong, because you will not be able to do those other things that you think you're supposed to do for you to earn self-care if you do not take care of yourself first. Self-care is the basis of the other things. If you don't have if you are underslept, and you wake up tomorrow morning groggy, and you don't have the energy to even go to work, then you will not be able to even do that work you think you're supposed to do for you to earn self-care. And as we said, one form of self-care is sleep. I know you're getting the point that I am trying to make here. Self-care is not something that you earn. It is something that you do so that you can do the other things in your life. Without self-care, there's no well-being. Without well-being, you cannot do the things that you want to do with your life. I hope we are all agreeing that if you continue believing in these myths, you are constantly going to be burnt out, and you're constantly going to hate your life, and you are constantly going to hate your clients. Consider becoming an ambassador for self-care as a daily practice, not as an emergency response. With that said, let me know in the comments section what you think about all these myths that I've discussed, and what your opinion is on them. If you believe them, if you are agreeing with me that they are myths and we need to get rid of them. If you disagree with me, I would like to hear it, and yeah, leave all that in the comment section of this video. I want you to share this video with one person, a friend, a relative, anybody in your circle. Thank you so much for coming through. Check out the next video and all the resources that are in the description box. Join our Telegram channel for job alerts and scholarship opportunities and all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video.